graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.
Deviants. Welcome to show. I am the Clintoris, and I am here with
the Guch,
and I am the Wendigo.
And we are the Social Deviants, who are here today to talk about one of my favorite films of all time, and that is not the most recent 2017 film with the same name, but the 1999 Ravenous.
Cult classic.
It really
Absolutely.
is. It really is.
Absolutely. This film was released March 19th, 1999. Today is March 15th, 2019. We'll be posting this on March 20th. It's been 20 years since this movie was released. I definitely remember, even when this movie came out, the commercials on TV showing him sliding down. I think it looked like he was sliding down some rocks or something like that.
Yeah,
and I didn't
but
really
he's
know
basically
what
going down the hillside.
Yeah, going down the hill. I didn't know what the movie was about. I just know it looked cool, and I don't think I saw it in the theater, but I definitely remember having the DVD. Like, one of the first DVDs that I ever bought was Ravenous. And when I watched it, I just fucking loved it.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw this movie until we started living together.
Yeah, I didn't watch until I saw it with you guys, and that was a couple of years later.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, the movie had a $12 million budget, and when I was looking it up, it only made $2 million, which to me is insane, right? Huge flop. I mean, 12 million is not a lot, but to only make two, I mean, wow. That's
crazy.
It made less money than Wing Commander? Gosh, what are you people doing out there? That's probably because they didn't market it correctly, probably.
And also, what did it open up against? Like, what was it? Do we know, like, what was out around that time when this movie came out?
Well, it was in between Wing Commander and Matrix, so those were released in the same year. So yeah, it's rough.
What week was this?
March 19th.
And then you look at 99, you got Wing Commander, you got Matrix, you got Star Wars coming out in May. Like, maybe 99 was just like super sci-fi stuff, you know?
Probably was, you know, and this was like considered a really dark film, and people I don't think it got well reviewed either, so that probably warded people off as well.
And I want to say, like, from what I remember from the commercials, I think this is one of those movies where the commercial didn't do it justice.
Because you didn't know what it was about.
Yeah, and it's like you see what's his face, like, hanging out in the river screaming, and then you see a bunch of Guy Pearce, and then like there's that scene where Robert Carlyle's like squatting like at a riverbank, like chewing on someone's bones and like spitting it out. Like, I remember that from the trailer. I also remember him. I don't know if it was him like digging in the hole or digging to get the knife, or if he was just like pointing at Toffler, and then, like, you know, like he was like kind of going crazy a little bit. Like, I remember that scene specifically from the trailer. But other than that, like, you watch that trailer, I don't recall like what it was. I'm gonna put that in the notes here. I want to put that trailer on the site.
Sounds good. The production was super rocky. There were 3 different directors. There was an original director who had a contentious relationship with the production company. Felt like he was being micromanaged, and so he left or got forced out. It's kind of unclear. And they brought another person in, but the cast sort of mutinied against him. And so that they didn't want him because they didn't think that he fit it. So Robert Carlyle actually suggested the eventual director, Antonia Bird, I believe her name is. And that's like, Robert Carlyle had made 3 or 4 movies with her before. So I think that was his suggestion, and that's why she kind of got added on to the film. And so she wanted and even then she said that she could understand why the first director had so many problems, because his complaints were warranted. And beyond that, she felt like the original theatrical cut they added some things and did some things differently than even she would have preferred. She was actually at one point talking about recutting it for European markets. So I'm actually curious to see like what else was out there, like what other things she wanted to do, or were there extra scenes she wanted in, some that were taken out, and so forth. It's also interesting because of how graphic it is, and so I'm curious, maybe there's more graphic stuff. I'm not exactly sure.
I mean, there was sorry, continue on. I was going to mention about the movies that had come out on like that in March. So you're right. So Wing Commander came out the week before, but that particular week, the 19th, Force of Nature with Sandra Bullock and Ben Affleck. The King and I, a cartoon, Ravenous, and then True Crime with which is actually a decent movie, by the way. With what's his name? I forgot, Clint Eastwood. That came out that week.
Well, there you go. I mean, like, people are going to go see a Clint Eastwood movie over Ravenous.
Well, the thing is, though, I mean, the movies before, I mean, look, so March 5th, Analyze This, Cruel Intentions, and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Those 3 movies alone are superior to this film. So,
Analyze This.
I like that movie. That movie's funny.
So, you know what's, speaking of other great movies, the guy who wrote this, the screenwriter, actually wrote Ocean's 11 as well.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, the guy is not, he's no slouch, so
yeah.
I thought that was very interesting to see, how someone could make that movie and then come back and make Ocean's 11. So, and they're very different movies, of course.
Yeah. And I don't know if we're going to be talking about this later, but there's the music in this movie was awesome. And
let's just talk about it right now, because that's exactly what was next on my list.
It's crazy because, like, I've heard this song, like, living with you for how long I lived with you, Clint. Yeah. I've heard this song so many times, and I just immediately thought, like, whenever I hear it, I just, that's Aphex Twin, right? But then we're watching the movie, and when they're making the move on the cave, that song that plays,
yeah, that's crazy.
It's so awesome.
I'm like, oh my God, like, that just brought so many memories from staying up late with Lucho, drinking shot after shot of Johnny Walker Red, and like all of our crazy nights at Southwest. And like that song, it's like, to me, like, that's almost like, it's weird because when I think of ambient music, I immediately think of Aphex Twin, but that song, just that, to me, that is like, I can hear Rhubarb and I hear this song. Whenever I think of ambient music, those are the 2 songs I think of.
Yeah, I in my notes I love the fucking music, all in caps, as I was listening to this, because there were so many times where I was watching this movie and I was like, gosh, I fucking love that song. And it's the same way that I felt the first time I watched the movie. I had to go out, and back when you get CDs, I went and bought the CD of the music. The music's by Damon Albarn, who is the guy behind Gorillaz, and obviously he's in what's the other name of that band, Guch? The Woohoo! What's the name of that band that does that song?
Blur.
Oh,
Blur, right.
Yeah, so he's in Blur. He's the man behind Gorillaz, and the music is just so kooky and spooky and perfect and epic at times and dark at times. I just love it. And even in the notes here, Devo, I had the music in the cave is just perfect. It's like, just perfect.
I paused the movie and I spent about 15 minutes just trying to figure out if that was Aphex Twin or not. Because, like, again, like, just going back to ambient music, like, Aphex Twin is the pinnacle of ambient music for me. And I was just like, there's no way this is not Aphex Twin. And then, like, I didn't even like dig that deep to figure out that this is the dude behind Gorillaz.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. And even the music at the end, it's just perfect. Like that one song that they're playing when they're fighting each other. It's just this one song that's just playing, and there's not a lot happening in it, and it builds up, and that's all that you hear. There's like, it's very silent other than just that music. So there's just something about the way that they incorporated the music in this movie that is just so unique that you rarely see. And I know a lot of people criticized the music, and I know the music was one of the main things that people talk about, but I absolutely loved it.
I loved it too. And like we can't talk about the cave song enough, but like the whole, like the drama and the stress and the tension of going into a place where people were murdered to hopefully find somebody alive, like that song. And then when you got the dude just completely freaking out, like that song, I think it sets the entire tone for the scene. And like it put me in that tense state. It put me in the like, I mean, I've seen the movie, so I obviously know what happens, but I was just like, oh my gosh, is that dude still in there? Are those people alive? Like, what's going on?
So I have a couple more things to talk about, like, historically, before we get into the cast. So this movie was set during the Mexican-American War of 1847. That's what it says in the very beginning. And that was so that was obviously like a huge a huge, a huge moment in American history where I think it followed in the wake of we annexed Texas, I guess, and then that sort of kicked off the Mexican-American War. So I won't go too deeply into it because you can obviously look all this stuff up, but you can kind of see the backdrop of this film, and the depth that little aspect of it, the history gives to it, I just love. You know what I mean? So there's just a lot more that you can do with that, and we'll get to that obviously a little bit later. And the last thing is that Fort Spencer was where majority of the film took place. I looked this up, and it's not real. I couldn't figure out that it was actually a real place, but there is a place called Mount Spencer. And it seems to be where I would assume most of the film takes place, because when you look at, I know obviously this film was shot in Mexico, and it was shot in Slovakia or something like that.
Yeah.
For the winter parts. Yeah. But I think the idea being that they're trying to make it looks like Fort Spencer, Mount Spencer, which is in Southern California-ish area, but not close to it's further away from the coast if you look it up. So, I thought that was kind of interesting that they used this idea of this fort, and obviously if what happened for real, then maybe it would have been covered up. Maybe we wouldn't have known about it, right? It would have been lost to history. So let's get into the casting here. The first thought is when I watch the movie, I turn it on, I just fucking love Guy Pearce. He's fucking awesome, and I just love him.
He's like a really underused actor. When I was watching this, I'm like, he's such a great actor. Not only as an action film star, but an actor in general. Memento is great. He was great in that Prison Break movie. What was it called?
Lockout.
Love
that movie.
I forgot he was in. Yeah, dude, that was a good movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie. Yeah.
He's in Prometheus.
Yep.
And he's good in Iron Man 3.
Yep, he is good in Iron Man 3.
He's the best thing about that.
Yeah. And it's what's interesting too is that his character, I even wrote here, John Boyd's a man struggling with his demons, and those demons are to eat people. I was trying to think, one thing that I like to do when we get to our casting section is try to think about who else would be able to fit that role. And, I'm trying to think of who else could be a good John Boyd and take over for Guy Pearce, assuming we did a remake or something. And I can't think of anybody that can be so stoic and so scared and so frightened to just be around
I think Christian Bale could do it.
I think Ed Norton could do it.
He could, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think Ed Norton could do it.
But I still think even if you had Ed Norton, there'd be some difference. Because, there's something about the way Guy Pearce looks when he gets beaten up near the end, where he just looks so haggard and ragged that it would be hard to make Ed Norton or Christian Bale quite look like that, because they look a little bit more, they're a little bit not as quite as rugged looking as Guy Pearce. So I think
but look at Christian Bale in The Machinist.
True.
Obviously he went crazy and he lost all that weight, but if Christian Bale is not in Batman mode and he's not sucking back cheeseburgers, he could probably get small enough. Because when you look at John Boyd and Guy Pearce in particular, he's not a very imposing character. So when at the beginning of the movie when you see him and he's I got frightened, I just lay down, it's believable, and he plays that same character throughout the entire movie. When Robert Carlyle's character first attacks everybody, and it's him and what's his name? Who's the blonde dude's name?
Neal McDonough.
And they're running around trying to chase down Carlyle. It's you can tell that fool does not want that to be in part of any sort of confrontation whatsoever. And I think Christian Bale, I think between Christian Bale and Ed Norton, I think both of them are just fantastic thespians that they could do it. But I think Christian Bale would I think he'd be a good pick for that.
I think so. I don't know how he would have done it back then, because this was before American Psycho when he truly came onto the scene.
Yeah.
But if they were to remake that movie now, which was, I don't want to step on the later thing, but he actually would be a good pick. I think Guy Pearce could still do it now. Honestly, he probably could. He doesn't look that much physically older. And so David Arquette's in the goddamn. I forgot he was in the movie.
I did too. I was like,
so
what's David Arquette?
And then when I saw his stupid face, I was just like, ugh.
God.
He's just a junkie.
He's so terrible,
He's just a junkie.
Never trust a junkie.
And
then there's the fucking guy from Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
What's his name? Jeremy. What's his? No,
Jeremy Jones, I think.
Jeremy Jones. Yeah, there you go. He's in it. And then obviously fucking Neal McDonough we talked about already. Just the scene where they first show him where he's in the river is just fucking awesome.
That guy's so funny.
He's just fucking awesome. He's a good actor too, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Minority Report.
Yep. And then and he's actually on this show that I love called Suits. He's fucking awesome in that too. And then obviously the man himself, Robert Carlyle. You can't. I don't think there's anyone else that could have done that role like he did it. He is perfect for that role.
So I was thinking about this. So like I even wrote down here in my notes, Robert Carlyle is a perfect villain. You know, like even like when the fool played Daffy in was it The Island?
Yeah.
Like the fool's crazy. He plays Rumpelstiltskin in the Once Upon a Time TV show, and he's a good job. He's perfect as that. Like he's a fantastic character actor. So like I look at Robert Carlyle and like going back and think about who else could like be this like weird like twisted evil character, because when you first meet him he's just like this weird like flippy like obviously he's like playing a part, and then all of a sudden when Guy Pearce goes back to the fort he's like a completely different person. And so like I'm trying to think, and there's two people that I think would be a really good replacement for Robert Carlyle. The first and foremost I would love to see as this kind of character, Sam Jackson.
Oh man,
I think Samuel L. would be like he could play like this kind of crazy, like just seeing Sam Jackson as like this crazy like cannibal kind of character. But then you think
it's a believable cannibal? Sam
Jackson?
Yeah.
I think he could do like some of the crazy parts, but I think where he would really shine is like later on when he's like he's pretending to be like the boss of the like I think. But another person who like, and this is going to come like way the fuck out of left field, Tilda Swinton.
Oh, see, I knew. Oh man, she's good.
She could do crazy. Actress, she could do suave. She could do debonair. She would be
really good. She would be so good,
dude. It's right.
She would. Yeah, she really would, man. And because there's this thing that he does where he sort of is bewildered and vulnerable, and then he's sort of untrustworthy, and then he's crazy, and then he comes back so trustworthy and normal, and then he's devious. It's the broad range.
In the movie, obviously it spans, a good amount of time, but like when we're watching it, it's literally the span of probably 15, 20 minutes where he goes through so many different stages. It's insane.
Yeah.
And there's just so many levels to that character, like because like you said, like he comes in, he's a survivor and he's like frozen, and then all of a sudden he's like he's a sad character, and all of a sudden
pathetic.
And then he becomes kind of like weird, like like all of a sudden he's like, well, you can't trust this guy because he was licking this dude in the middle of the night, and then all of a sudden becomes crazy, and then becomes this like cold-blooded killer, and then he goes, and then all of a sudden becomes like he's like, now I'm this debonair sort of like leader of this group. It's
he was so good.
Yeah,
like that's crazy.
Oh, I love that man. He's awesome. He really wish he did more movies. He should just go back to doing more movies. I know that show ended, but I don't know.
And it's funny because I think I know this came out before, but I think the first time I actually saw Robert Carlyle was in 28 Days Later. No, I mean 28 Weeks Later.
Oh, that's right. He is in that.
I saw him in Trainspotting.
I think I saw him in this first, then probably Trainspotting.
He's in Trainspotting.
He's in Trainspotting. He's the main junkie guy.
Oh, dude, that's the best when he's drinking that beer and he just tosses it over his shoulder.
Yeah,
and he busts open that chick's face and he's like, "All right, who fucking did this?" Yeah. And then he just starts beating the shit out of everybody in the bar.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I saw first.
Have you seen Trainspotting too?
No.
No, I have it. It's interesting to rewatch it or watch it because it's obviously a direct sequel, but seeing everybody like as they're older, I recommend watching it. Not as good as the first one, but it's good.
Maybe we'll have to watch it on this show. So let's get into the script here. So the movie starts off with this quote: "He that fights with monsters should look into it that he himself does not become a monster." Which is like Nietzsche, and then the quote after that is "Eat me" by Anonymous. And I just love it. It's so perfect because right off the bat, it's a little hint that maybe you shouldn't take this film super seriously. Like it's not that serious of a film.
That's a good point,
right? Essentially it's a comedy. If you look at it, it's a really dark, twisted comedy. There's so many funny, entertaining things in here, despite all, how dark it is and graphic it is, but it's awesome.
Because even when Robert Carlyle kills everybody at the cave, and then Guy Pearce, like, he falls down the hill, that there's a span of maybe like 10-15 minutes in the movie where Guy Pearce is stuck in the hole with McDonough's body, and then it cuts between Guy Pearce just trying to survive and then Robert Carlyle like running around just like eating bodies.
Yeah, it looks like Gollum.
And like what's weird is because the way he does it, like, perfect analogy. He looks like Gollum. He's squatting and he's just like kind of like erratic and he's just like gnawing on bones. He's like, oh, this is gross, and he spits it out. Like, the way that they shot it and the way they portrayed Robert Carlyle during those scenes, it's funny. And then it cuts to Guy Pearce, who's just trying to, like, he's got to reset a broken bone and he's like sucking on like wood, like roots just to survive. And then, obviously he has to do what he has to do to survive. And then he gets the powers of the Wendigo. But regardless, I don't know if it was intentionally made to be funny, but there's just so much of this movie that just made me chuckle. And maybe that just means I'm a horrible person. And maybe I'm a cannibal at heart. I don't know.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually had this down in my notes that it's like Guy Pearce's character Boyd is laying there in agony for I don't know how long, days maybe, freezing,
at least a day,
and Robert Carlyle is sitting around eating people, spitting out bones, skipping rocks in the water. Yeah, it's just it's fantastic. It's just, but maybe great. It was
longer than a day, because there's a point where he looks over at McDonough and it doesn't look like McDonough's skin is like rotting off. It's like black.
Yep. Yeah, he's rotting.
Is he? I thought he was just. It looked like he was okay still.
I think he was rotting.
There's a scene where he looks at because they keep showing McDonough's face, and McDonough's eyes are just wide open.
The thing is, though, is that I'm assuming it wasn't very long that he was there, maybe 1 or 2 days, just because blood doesn't work that way. He cut into the top part of his body, and blood like spurt out. Shit don't work that way. The blood pools to the bottom of the body, and like. Literally
but he was hanging upside down, wasn't he? Oh, no.
He was just laying down
eventually.
He was laying down there with them. So I'm assuming it was pretty soon after, but it couldn't have been more than a couple days.
Yeah, honestly, like the blood spurting, you just chalk it up to just poor research.
I understand that, but still, I mean, the body wasn't in rigor mortis yet. He got the flesh out pretty easy.
Except for that dick.
Yeah, well.
Well, we'll get.
That's
we'll discuss more, and it's just
sorry. I just train wrecked the entire conversation.
No, it's fine.
That type of thing's gonna happen.
It happens
right off the bat.
The Wendigo.
So right in the very beginning, the movie starts off right after that quote, and it shows the American flag. Which to me is just, even that makes me laugh because it's so ironic, right? Especially when you've seen the movie already, what's going to happen. And then you rewatch it and you're like, that's the first thing that they show is the American flag, which I thought is actually kind of funny, because if you watch later in the movie, there's a scene where Carlyle is talking to Guy Pearce about manifest destiny, which is another truly American idea. And there's a close up with Robert Carlyle on the left, Guy Pearce on the right, and he's trying to convince him to eat people, right? Yeah. And in the middle of them, in the background in the distance, is an American flag wisping in the wind as they're talking about this, and it was just perfectly situated right between them, and it was truly harkening back to that opening scene. So I thought that was just amazing when I looked at it.
That's funny. I never put two and two together.
Yeah, and then to even go further, at right after they show the American flag, the next very closely after that, they show obviously the scene where he's in the war and everything. They have that scene where everyone's sitting around eating bloody meat.
Oh, just disgusting! Just bloody fat meat. Ugh.
It was delicious. That big old fat bone in the middle.
They're like, all right, let's get these just undercooked slabs of meat, and then we're just gonna pour just red water all over them.
So apparently, I guess Guy Pearce is a vegetarian.
Oh God!
Guy. God, he hated doing all those scenes, like the one where he eats the stew. Apparently, like every scene, like he's like eating, he's like every single time he has to like put a spoon into his mouth, like chew into the flesh. Like they would cut it and he would just spit it out and like drink a bunch of water and like wash it off. It's so funny.
His reactions in the movie are natural then, right?
Are probably natural. Yes. Just
That's
indeed.
awesome.
Because I was reading it, it was like it was just like lamb stew or something. So I'm sure it tasted great.
Probably did. Well, not if you're a vegetarian.
No, of course not.
So now this fool was like a lieutenant, and he just laid down while everyone was getting slaughtered.
Dude. It's funny too because I was explaining to Kat, she's like, "Well, is that a movie I'd want to watch?" I'm like, "Well, not really." And then like I was like, "Well, it starts off with this dude who's leading his military unit, and then he's such a coward that he stops in the middle of this war and then just puts his gun down and he just lays down. He just plays dead." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And then and then after that, the Mexicans find him, put him at the bottom of a cart, and then pile just dead bodies on top of him, and all his blood just starts pouring into his mouth.
Brutal, absolutely brutal. I don't know. I feel like he would have probably been killed by someone secretly if they knew that's what happened.
I think what would have happened.
They explained the reason why, because after he got out and he got the Wendigo powers from drinking blood or something. I'm assuming that's what happened. Like he took control of the whole like Mexican high command in that area. So technically,
he didn't get Wendigo powers back then.
Oh, he was never hurt.
No, he did. He did because they even say like he drank the blood. No, he drank all the blood because he's like, I laid there while my commanding officer's like half open skull was laying on top of me. And his blood poured down my throat.
I don't think I got that part of it. Yeah, I don't think I ever got that part of it, because then you would have think that the Native American brother would have noticed that he was already a Wendigo, and he would have yearned for it.
But that's the thing is Guy Pearce fought it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He didn't give in to the temptation. Yeah. So when he goes to the fort, whatever, he's not eating people. He doesn't have the power. The blood goes in his mouth, and then he even says he's like, something changed. And then he crawled out, and then that's when he became brave. And
what do you think he has an aversion to bloody ass meat because of that whole thing? Yeah.
Because that's not even listed in the plot here in Wikipedia. Not that that's the be all end all, but I've never thought that. So that's very interesting that you guys are saying that.
He said it. Yeah. He said it. He said.
I never got that from it, but
it also happens like super quick.
Yeah. When he's explaining about the whole thing about him being a coward and whatnot and what happened to him.
Huh. Interesting. So that's why he was maybe like super interested in it when the Native American dude started mentioning it to him.
Exactly.
So one of the things I love is when the dude from Beetlejuice, when Guy Pearce first shows up, the dude from Beetlejuice is talking about how he loves all these books and it's the literature throughout the ages, and he grabs this book that he's like presumably going to open up and show him some like passage, and instead
which he does. He opens it up
and he bloviates about reading and language, and then he just uses it to smash walnuts. I was like, I love this. And then it's great because they even go back to it later when he becomes a Wendigo and he crushes him with his hands.
Yeah.
So it shows you how strong he is. It's just great. It's just great screenwriting. And
that was a good twist too.
Oh yeah. That was a great twist when he came back, for sure.
And it's funny because for however many times we've seen this, presumably we were all just blasted out of our minds watching this movie. But like, I forgot the last half of this movie.
Really?
I feel like whenever we sit down and we put it on, we always get to the part to where Guy Pearce falls down the hill, and then all of a sudden maybe just we pass out because we're just so drunk or something. But watching the last half of this movie again, I was like, wow, it felt like a brand new movie to me. It was really weird.
Mm. Well, you're lucky.
Yeah.
You got to experience this movie for the first time. It's glorious. So when Carlyle's telling his story, when they first get him, the Native American brother, he's just walking around looking at him and I thought it was funny because you could just see a lot of it is like them showing him talking and then like people's faces as they're listening, right? And that dude's just pacing around, and I could just see what he was thinking in his head. He was just looking at him like, "You fuck. I know exactly what the fuck you are.
You goddamn monster.
Yeah.
You fucking Wendigo."
Because once his story finished, that fool brought the Wendigo parchment or whatever the
Yeah.
literally like the
He didn't
next
buy any
scene,
of it.
the next scene he was telling the colonel about the
Yeah.
Wendigo. I'm like this him this guy.
Even when they're walking to the cave, like the first, like probably, I don't know, like they make it seem like it's so early in their trip to the cave. Like George, the Native American guy, he turns to John Boyd and he's like, Wendigo.
Yeah.
And John Boyd just looks back at him and he's just like, okay.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? During the story, I caught this. You guys probably caught this too. When he's telling the story and he says that he felt so cowardly for leaving Mrs. McCready there, you could see Guy Pearce how much that dagger hit him right there. Because he also felt exactly the same.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so essentially Robert Carlyle fools them to get them to go to the cave, right? I just think, I don't know, did you guys think that? To me, I don't know. I guess I bought it. I don't think I anticipated that was what was going to happen the first time I watched the movie. And I just thought that the way that he tricked him was so epic. He literally ensnared them to death.
Well, I mean, like, you brought it up earlier to where up until that point, he already went through like 3 stages of emotion. You know, he was in despair, he was in denial, he was sad about what happened, and like you honestly thought he was a victim. It's not until they camp for that first night, and then he starts licking Toffler. He was licking me. You know, it's not till that point to where you're like, okay, something's wrong with this guy, and I think that like. That was like, but then even at that point, he's like, you know, you're right. Something's wrong with me. Tie me up. He's like, all right, you know, if somebody is like offering you to like, you know, tie them up and put cuffs on them, then like something's wrong. You should just put a bullet in that guy's head.
Yeah, that's a hint.
Wow.
You know,
So you would have just killed him right there.
Well, back in those days, you know, like,
So would you have even gone to the cave?
Well, here's the problem. Who is leading the charge?
The Colonel.
Exactly. His buddy. So
you didn't have a choice, right? Before then,
because your colonel is like your superior, your commanding officer is telling you what to do. So cannibal comes, tells secret cannibal, "Oh, I'm in her. You know, there's somebody over here that might still be alive. Let's go get him."
Whoa! So you think that the Colonel was a cannibal before the movie started?
I think so.
Wow.
Well, I
think he mentioned that that was the first time. He was afterwards.
He was?
Beetlejuice. I think when he comes back, he mentions to Guy Pearce that like he woke up and he was putting the food in my mouth.
It was Robert Carlyle's character was like feeding him either the Indian guy's blood or the other guy's blood or food or something. That's why it was No, because that's why
there goes my theory.
But because towards the end Beetlejuice's principal, I don't know, the colonel even
Beetlejuice.
Even
we already said 3 times he's going to come for us.
Even he said that he can't live the way he's living. I mean, true.
Yeah.
He's he's living forever and he has strength and whatnot, but honestly, he's taking other people's lives. So
So that leads me to the question. I have to ask you guys, could you live as a Wendigo? You don't have to eat people you love, but you just have to eat people.
It's like being a vampire.
And you get super strength.
No, it's Guch. For the record, it's nothing like being a vampire.
No, because
why not?
No, because it's the same type of thing. It's like someone you take someone else's essence in
but you're not. You don't have to kill them. Number one, and number two, it's like a sensual thing.
Well, it depends.
Or it can be.
Because it depends on the vampire. Because you're thinking about the twinkly fucking vampires. There's vampires that devour humans. It's just the way it is. It's vampirism.
But I don't think that's commonly what we
I'm just
think
saying
of as vampire. If you're going to compare it that way, then maybe yeah.
But we're saying it as in essence where you would have to take someone from something to survive. And honestly, true, you don't have to kill as a vampire to but you drain someone's blood enough, you'll kill them.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. But I don't know.
See, here's the problem: that he had to like literally cut them up and strip their bones of the meat and all this stuff like that. I can't do that. Like I couldn't even do that if I had to do that with like a cow.
I think he wanted to. At that point,
I know that, but I'm saying like I don't think I could do that even with like an animal. You know what I mean? So let alone a person, I don't think I could do it.
I don't think I could.
Die.
Science, baby. I'll get the serum so I don't have to have the urge anymore.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I guess like if I was in that point where the guys from Alive, maybe I would, but not like just because I'm gonna make you be powerful because I ate someone's leg for lunch. Seems a bit too much.
I'll do it.
You'll be a cannibal?
You'd be a cannibal, Phil?
Yeah. If I got superpowers, I could live forever.
Make some delicious Clinton stew.
Now, hold on. That's a good question. Do you think that they were that they live forever?
Probably. I mean,
If they didn't age.
Dude, he got shot in the chest. Fool got a broken leg, and the shit healed it. Yeah, why wouldn't it be able to heal age?
Yeah.
So that means the Wendigos live forever then.
And I don't know if they live forever, but they definitely have a long lifespan.
Because you also have to think that the power wasn't constant. So the power was only however often they would consume flesh or the essence or whatever, however you want to put it.
And it'd be one of those things where the older you get, the more you have to consume. So eventually they'll find you, maybe.
Right. And so if you're in your 30s and you've got a regular diet of human essence, then you're going to probably stay in your 30s. But if you you're in your 30s, you dabble a little bit and then you wait maybe 4 or 5 years, you're not going to stay at 30. You're going to age, and then you get back into the game, and then all of a sudden now you're stuck at 35. So I think whatever age you wanted to be or stay at, then that's when you should start eating people and drinking their blood. So there you go.
Okay, so after he ambushes them, right, essentially, and he's sort of killed a couple. I think he killed 2 people by them, and Toffler, Jeremy Davies, is standing there basically shitting his pants, right? And Carlyle basically says,
"Man outside."
Run. Well, he says that fool. But remember, he says run. And it's basically comical at that point, right? It's almost comedic, right? Now, as they were chasing after him, that badass song, "Let's Go Kill That Bastard," which I love that song. Guy at one point says he's going to go back. Would you guys have gone back?
Well, that's the coward John Boyd.
Well, I'm asking you, what would you guys have done?
If I were him and I was PTSD type person, I probably would have gone back. That's what he would have really had. He had PTSD.
Oh, 100% he had PTSD.
Yeah. I don't know if he was a coward or not, but that's who had PTSD. That's what it was. So, I mean, if you are suffering of that, I don't think us sound mind,
Guch,
maybe
what
not.
I really want to know? I want to know what the Guch would do if the Guch was in the movie.
Oh, I would have killed Robert Carlyle at the camp. Even before, this fool ate a bunch of people.
I just
said
if that fool is hey, tie me up, you put a bullet in his brain, you both scoffed at me.
Look, no, I didn't scoff at you. I said I would do the same. Clint scoffed at you. If anything,
I didn't scoff at anyone.
Even if I wouldn't have killed them initially, I would have left them in chains at the camp, and we would have gone ourselves
to the cave.
If we couldn't find him, tough luck. We come back.
He wouldn't have been there though, because he could easily got.
And I would have told the drunk guy, do not touch this guy. Do not look at him. Leave him chained up. 24/7 shackles, neck shackles. All that stuff. That's what I would have done. And then I would have thrown him in the stockade.
So if you were Neal McDonough and you and Guy Pearce said that he was going to go back, you'd have just blasted him right there.
Slap him around.
I would have slapped him around because I wouldn't have shot me. Obviously,
you needed him.
Neal McDonough was a soldier, and his whole thing was he was in it for the fight. He was in it to be he's the badass of the movie.
Even when he was in the hole, when he was in the hole, he got a little bit sick to his stomach because that stuff was gross to him. So I could see that it got to him.
Well, he
picked up a decapitated head that was completely stripped of all its flesh.
Yeah,
that was brutal. So when Robert Carlyle comes back like the fucking Undertaker,
that shit was so funny to me.
Yeah, I was just laughing.
He had the hat and the jacket that he had on, and his boots. He looked just like the Undertaker.
No, I mean, if at that point I was just thinking, what the fuck would I have done if I would have blasted him like Guy Pearce blasted him, and then this fool just came up like the Undertaker? I don't know, man. I might have jumped off the cliff
Guy
too.
Pearce, you just jump off a cliff.
It's better than exactly. It's better than becoming.
You're gonna get eaten, or you're gonna break some bones and maybe survive. What better chance do you have? And Guy Pearce made obviously the right decision.
So, okay, this is my other thing. Now, when Guy gets down there and he's in the thing and Neal McDonough's hanging upside down, and then it for a split second he's still alive. Why did you think that he was attacking him? Because he was hungry. He wanted to eat him, or
No,
he was
I think
angry
it was-
that
I
Guy
think he was-
Pearce bitched out.
Yeah, I think it was angry because Guy Pearce bitched out.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was like he's like with my last ounce of strength, I'm gonna take you with me type thing.
Yeah.
I think it was just Guy Pearce bitched out.
So then he just cannibalized him eventually.
Eventually,
and
yes.
came back all energized and healed. I mean, obviously his leg was still a little beat up. It sounded all nasty. The sound effects were great. But this fool walks back to the camp fort and looks completely beat to shit. Eventually he looks like a zombie. Eventually, when he's like trying to like entice him to eat.
Yeah,
right?
it's because of the hunger is getting to him.
Yeah. So I found it interesting because that made me think of the quote in the very beginning of the movie. He essentially became the monster first, and then he decided to destroy the monster. Because remember, he wanted to just walk away before that. Before he shot Robert Carlyle and went down the thing, and Robert Carlyle almost killed him, and he had to kill. He actually didn't want any part of this. He didn't want to kill Robert Carlyle at all. He didn't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And then once he shot him and he came back, then all of a sudden and then when he ate Neal McDonough, he had to become a monster then. He was the monster. He was a Wendigo, essentially.
Yeah.
He was fighting against it. And he had to become the monster, which I found interesting because that was very similar to the way that Brad Pitt's character trajectory was in Interview with the Vampire, where he's sort of this monster, but he doesn't want to be this monster. But he also wants to destroy the monster.
Well, I mean, Robert Carlyle the character kind of told him what he was planning to do, and what he was planning to do was kind of being like a monstrous thing, and that's what I think Guy Pearce was like. Okay, shit, I gotta kill this fool because remember he was planning to kill all the people that come through that fort, and that's when Guy Pearce, because that's when like they were at the stump where they were chopping up the one dude, and
And
the drunk guy, they were just chopping him up, just chopping him up.
Having a conversation.
They're having a conversation, chopping him up. And that's
chopping
what they
it
told
up while
them.
chopping him up.
Yeah, and that's when they, they got, they tied him up and made the hunger worse. And then they fed him the stew.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because when Carlyle comes back to the fort after Guy Pearce comes back, I just loved it because he just came in. He had eyes closed on. He was cleaned up. He even had Toppler's rosary on his wrist.
Yeah.
If you caught that.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then it made me laugh because this drunken ass motherfucker didn't even remember him.
Yeah.
He literally didn't even remember him.
That's crazy.
I liked Guy Pearce's reaction when he saw him. It like crumpled to the ground. That was that was
it must
epic.
have been. Yeah, I mean, I had this for it's so ridiculous, but let's talk about it now. At first I was wondering why he did that, but then I assumed it's because that was like his defense mechanism for his PTSD was that what he did in the war was he went on the ground when he got scared. And so that's what he wanted to do in that moment. Am I reading that right?
No, I think it was. I mean, he was telling people these things, right? And obviously he had seen him get shot. He never expected him to see him so quickly and come back as a colonel.
Yeah,
I mean, he was utterly shocked, and
because you have to also figure like that he went back to that place for refuge, and the one person he would not expect to see is the one person that was probably going to bring his doom.
And remember, I think
he's running the show.
And I mean, up to this point, he didn't know that the other colonel survived. So, like, what did he do with all the bodies? How did it all get cleaned up? There was nothing there. Was he actually going crazy? Type thing. It's one of those things where they were telling him that you gotta say this, you gotta say that. You're nuts. You're blah 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 blah.
I'll tell you how they all got cleaned up.
Exactly. And then the guy that you're telling these people killed everyone just shows up and he's a colonel. That shit would stupefy everyone, dude.
What were you guys thinking when you saw that when you were watching the movie?
Well, I knew it was coming, but I'm sure when I first watched it, I knew it was coming because I've watched a lot of horror films. But it was a good twist. It was a good show. It was a good scene.
Yeah,
I mean, having already seen it, it's like, and what's happening. Like I can't even recall the first time I saw it. I can't recall the feeling I had.
I'm just assuming that's what I would have done. That's what I felt.
I'm trying to get back to that drunk level, but I just can't do it. So,
and I did a lot of drugs then too. So I mean, I don't know.
When he's impersonating Ives, he's just so awesome. Just the way that he is, the way his personality is so different than it is the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
he just, like Dio mentioned before, he just flips a switch like multiple times in this movie, and when he gets into that character, he's just so perfect. I just love it. So, and then obviously, as Guy Pearce is jonesing for human flesh, Robert Carlyle explains to him like what his real story was, like what really happened on that trip that he talks about in the very beginning. And he reveals that he had TB and that this essentially cured it. But I thought was interesting, the brutality of the story that he's told about this scout that actually told him about the legend of the Wendigo. And he actually said that he ate that dude that told him about it. He's like, I tested the theory out on him. I was like, how fucking brutal is that this dude told you about it, so then you decided to kill him and eat him to test it out?
Just to see if it worked.
Yeah, I mean, that was the sixth body they found in the hole
in the cave.
Yeah,
that was the sixth body. It was a scout, the first scout.
So, do you think he was really from Scotland, or do you think that his background was truly at like what he framed it as?
Well, I mean, he was Colonel Ives, so he was a colonel in the American Army.
So you think he really was?
Well,
Colonel
he said
Ives?
he was.
But he was Scotland. He was Scotland.
No, but they find the colonel's jacket in the cave.
No, that's his jacket. It's not McCullough. It's Colonel Ives. He says that he was an army general and he was dying of TB and he was coming out here to die, right? Pretty much, just to retire and die, and
it's true. He does say that. You're right.
And he says I took my caravan up. Unfortunately, they had an unfortunate accident or a state of events, and I had to eat them. It was his caravan, which means he was the one leading it, and Ives was the one leading it. So he actually was Colonel Ives.
Yeah, but I think the idea of that there was an unfortunate turn of events, actually he orchestrated.
Oh no, he orchestrated. No, that was it.
Yeah,
no, he was just being sarcastic.
We popped a tire.
He meant that. He meant those people to be out there. Oh, no fucking doubt. No fucking doubt.
And so, also at the very end, when Guy Pearce is like running around looking for Carlyle, at the very end, they do this thing where they sort of cut in one frame of Carlyle's face to trick you into thinking that when Guy Pearce opens the door, that Carlyle's going to be there. I just thought that was awesome. Did you guys catch that?
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't pick that up.
Yeah, like they had his, the face with the little blood mark on his the cross, and they'd flash that.
Yeah,
every so often through it.
It was just a cool little filmmaking little trick that they did. And I had one last question before we get into what's just so ridiculous. So at the very end, Martha just left. She just walked off. That was it.
Yeah, but she knew what was coming, Paul. But she knew. They all turned into cannibals. Like the general was eating the stew, so which most likely he would have turned into a cannibal eventually.
But she was sort of checked out after David Arquette got killed. Did you think that he was tapping that, or what?
No, she was checked out after her brother got killed, and she's got even more whacked out after David Arquette, and probably all the horses. I mean,
my question still stands.
That she got whacked. What do you mean?
What about David Arquette tapping that?
Tapping? Oh no, I doubt it. I doubt it.
She was celibate.
I don't know if she was celibate.
No, I don't know if she was celibate, but because George and David Arquette were boys.
Yeah.
Right. Because they were always smoking that peyote and getting
that my brother-in-law type of thing.
No, I doubt it.
I don't think so. And plus, he had that grimy yellow teeth. Like, you don't want to put that in your mouth.
Well, those were different times. They were different times.
No, but she had perfect teeth. He didn't. So
yeah,
well, true. That okay. So considering how ridiculous that sounds, let's get into it. It's just so ridiculous. First things first. I guess this is the most obvious thing. There's no fucking way he survives that jump, right?
No.
He's dead.
Yeah.
Guch, you agree?
What do you mean? Jumping off the... Well, if there's enough... I don't know.
But, like, they show him, like, rolling into trees, rolling in the rocks.
The thing is, it's survivable because he is breaking through trees. What's most likely would have happened, he would have probably gotten impaled with some branches on the way down. He probably would have been dead on the way down. But
I think going from the cliff and the fall, like he hits the trees. I think the trees deaden his impact, but it's not just that he like jumps off the thing, he hits the trees and he falls. He's rolling down a hill after that, and he's rolling and rolling, and he's picking up speed and momentum, and he's toppling over and over and over. So like the fact that he came out of that with just a broken leg is phenomenal.
Well, I mean, he had like a nasty compound fracture. Wouldn't he have gotten like gangrene pretty quickly and gotten infected pretty quickly?
But like the fact that it only happened in one leg, like with how often he like how many trees he went through, how far that fall like they made it look,
well, I mean,
and
he was pretty beat up, but maybe they show the compound fracture because of the gore factor, but we don't know if he may have had internal injuries or anything. And that's what it would have probably killed him.
Maybe not, but still,
I think,
like, I don't know.
he
I
pretty
think it
beat
should
up.
have been a lot worse. Like, I don't know, just maybe it was
it's
just like Benny Hill rolling down a hill or something like that.
it's a
It
whole
just
thing.
went over and over
He needed
and over.
to be
and over
mobile
and
enough
over
to be able
and
to, you know, grab a piece of what's his face and just eat it. So they had to be that mobile.
Yeah.
So what do they
But
do?
what-
Just break a leg.
And maybe
Literally.
this is a perfect segue into like it's just so ridiculous, but like when he was like, all right, I gotta set this fracture again. Like he takes a piece of like wood, puts it in his mouth because he's gonna, you know, he knows he's gonna hurt, and he's pushing on, and then he's like, all right, this wood's not helping, so he spits it out, and then he like keeps pushing on his leg. It's like, well, what the hell? Like you put that in your mouth to like stop the pain, and all of a sudden now you're just gonna like let it go.
Well, my thing is, Guch, you're our resident medical expert. Is it even possible to push that bone in like that and reset it?
It takes a lot of force to put a bone back, even like partially reset it. So
And when you've fallen X amount of feet and you've rolled down a hill for 20 minutes, I don't think you're going to have the strength to be able to push that bone back in.
I agree. I don't know if you'll have the strength to do it because the muscles themselves just are like they act like an elastic, right? You know, your bones keep them taut, and when the bone breaks, that elasticity just shrinks in. So you have to fight against your own muscles, your tendons, and all that stuff to push it.
You're like
and
contracting.
Exactly. I know
Yeah.
it's incredibly hard, and especially
It's probably impossible.
I wouldn't want to say it's impossible. I'm sure
I guess you're right
ways,
because
but-
adrenaline, right?
Yeah, but I don't think you could do it yourself. You would need like counterweights, like tie your foot to something heavy, maybe, and like drop it. But I don't know if you could just like will it and force your leg in. It'd be difficult. I think the pain would be too immense.
Yeah.
One of the things I love is when he finally gets it in, it like cuts to a scene of David Arquette chopping wood.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah. Just snap.
And then later on, this motherfucker is cooking a stew with David Arquette's body. I just can't stop laughing about it. I don't know why, if I'm terrible or not, but it's just hilarious. And then the Colonel, that's what even makes it worse is like when the Colonel comes back, he sort of compounds the sort of comedic factor because he brings this sort of levity, this practicality to the madness of cannibalism.
Mm-hmm.
He's very pragmatic about it, you know? He's very nonchalant about it. And there's even a scene where he's feeding the chickens and he's literally holding someone's skeleton hand while he's feeding the chickens. It was preposterous.
Well, I think I thought the same thing. I was like, why is this like? I wonder if it was like his mechanism to cope with what he's been doing. So he like uses humor.
I think it was because eventually he says he can't do it.
He can't deal with it
live
anymore.
like this anymore.
Yeah.
I think he was trying to normalize it for himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I have like two last things related to the same thing is when they're fighting at the very end, there was a couple ridiculous moments. So with Carlyle, he just stays stationary. He's like looking at Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce goes and gets a log and smashes him in the face and he doesn't dodge it at all.
Well, he's a vampire. He's a vampire.
Is he thought that he was like impervious to it or something?
Apparently, if we just got back up.
Yeah.
But why did he just take it? I was like, what? And then
he loves taking that stiff log, dude.
And then here's the other thing. Why didn't Guy Pearce just keep bashing him with the log then?
Oh, dude,
He literally put himself in peril by trying to grapple with him and got stabbed.
Earlier, he shot that fool in the heart and he just rose up like the Undertaker. You think a log to the face is going to stop him?
Well, if you smash his head to bits,
you shot him in the
power
heart
to do that.
No, he didn't
but you have the power to do it, right?
It wasn't like in the shoulder.
In the shoulder, they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in the shoulder. It wasn't in the heart. If it was in the heart, maybe I'd killed him.
I don't know. Would you have done that, Guch? Would you just kept smashing with the log until his face was muck? I would have.
There was other things you could have grabbed and just stabbed him in the heart. There was like a sword nearby. Just pick up the sword and cut his head off.
So that's the other thing too. Before we get into the Kim Coppola, how do you think you would kill a Wendigo? You cut their head off, or
outside of starvation, like probably like it. Definitely cut the head off because they can't eat and get the sustenance if they don't have a body. But that I think if they have just recently eaten, then that's where their powers are the most strongest. So you've got to figure out you can cut their arm off. They're probably not going to feel it or they're not going to care. It's not going to grow back or anything, I don't think. But I mean, you never know because that fool's leg was no, it wasn't healed perfectly.
Well, I mean, look at how they died. Look how they died. I mean, they both had just eaten that stew, so I'm assuming they both have Wendigo powers, right? And they got killed in
Wendigo.
in the bear trap. So either two things: one, massive internal injuries, obviously with those teeth. So just regular bleeding is killing him. Two, most likely they have a broken back, but that won't kill you. But the massive internal bleeding did.
Yeah, they would have had to like eat more, and then they probably would have been able to get out. Because I think that's kind of what Robert Carlyle.
That's what Robert Carlyle was trying to get at. So if he died, if Guy Pearce's character would have died first, he would have just eaten them, and then What
would you guys do in that moment?
What?
If the other guy died first, what would you do if you were either one? Doesn't matter.
Well, I've already admitted to cannibalism, so I would eat him.
Wendigo.
You would have eaten them, got out, and then eaten up everyone that came.
You know what?
Yep.
I would have. Shit, if I would. You know what? I would have died because what would have happened was, it was one or two things would have happened. Guy Pearce. Let's see. Guy Pearce survived. Guy Pearce would have eaten Robert Carlyle's character, gotten out of that fucking thing, and then get him thrown into stockades and die.
He would have PTSD for the rest of his life.
No, he would have been thrown in the stockades and they would have hung him.
Because he ate someone.
No, because obviously he ate someone and they think that he killed everyone.
Probably.
So he was already going that way.
Robert Carlyle would have been fine. He would just went into the woods.
No, Robert Carlyle would have said, I fought him off and I'm fine. He could have just, he went crazy.
That's true because he was
because they believed Robert Carlyle's character, so he would have been fine.
He had the charisma.
He would have been perfectly fine. So in reality, it would have been it really would have been up to Guy Pearce.
Well, I for the record probably would have eaten him because I don't want to die. Now, Devo, I will have to leave since I'm so impressed with the way that you did the other one. I think I have to turn over the introduction of this award, the duties of this, to you.
All right,
if you please.
So we are going to be announcing the Kim Coppola Award, awarded to the worst actor of the film. The first nominee.
You have to keep doing that, by the way, but every time now.
What?
The finest, worst.
Okay, all right, noted. The first nominee by the Guch.
Who was it? It was David Arquette.
The nominee from the Devoslack would be David Arquette, because sometimes I just hate his fucking face. And the Kim Coppola Award nominee from the Clintoris.
This one, I'm sorry to talk too long, but this one, I almost thought everyone in the movie was awesome. And so I had to pick the one guy that I thought did the thing that he always does in every single movie that he's in. And so I'm going to pick him, even though he's not going to win because it's not David Arquette, and that was Jeremy Davies. He always does his stuff that he does, his little whispers and his little hand motions and stuff. Granted, this might have been the first time I ever saw him in a movie, but he's done it like in almost every fucking movie that he's been in since then.
So was this guy a child actor? Because whenever I see him, I always think of the kid from E.T., but it's not him.
No, I don't think he was. I'm going to look him up, actually.
It was his first movie was I guess he was in General Hospital, and that was in 92. Never mind.
He was in General Hospital,
but in 92.
He's in Saving Private Ryan.
He is. He's
That's
the
right. Yeah. He's the guy that ends up getting
guy.
killed.
He's
the Weasley guy.
Yeah.
So he plays that same character.
He let Steamboat Willie go.
He did.
He's in Twister. Interesting.
Yeah, and he plays that type of squirrely character as well. But that's what he gets though. He gets that role. He plays that squirrely
exactly.
Character. But it's not like just because he plays it a lot doesn't mean. David Arquette was terrible in this film.
But he was supposed to be terrible. I thought he actually did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, well,
he was still not good. But if that's the case,
then this guy did exactly what he did too, and he did a better bad job at it than David Arquette.
Well, he's gonna win, obviously. So
either way, I hate that guy. I agree. I don't like how he acts. But David Arquette, I don't like his face. David Arquette was terrible.
The winner of the Kim Coppola Award goes to David Arquette in Ravenous.
Terrible.
All right, guys. I want hit me with your favorite quotes.
I would have to be
whenever we talk about this movie. Sorry, Guch, I don't mean to cut you off. But whenever we talk about this movie, it's always this one quote, and it's always from Toffler. He was licking me.
See, there you go. He said that, bro, and it's one of my favorite quotes. He can't be there. He can't be your worst.
But it's just
other than that, he wasn't good, but that was awesome.
But like even so, like Toffler, he's a religious guy, right? And that's the big thing of him in the movie. But when he falls, like, by the way, how he falls is ridiculous to me. Like, he just like ends up falling down a hill and he's like going and going and going. But then Neal McDonough is like, oh, I'm gonna go save him. And he just jumps down the same path and like doesn't get hurt whatsoever. And so this fool's got like a giant open wound. And then fucking after that, he just becomes a dummy. And he's just like, look at me. He was like at me. Sick man outside. Sick man outside.
You sleep outside.
Or I love how he's like, I'd like some of that bourbon now.
Yeah.
Bourbon now.
And after that,
so good.
And after those quotes, I mean, almost everything that Ives says once he becomes once he's like the Colonel character is actually really good.
Perfect. Yeah.
Like almost everything he says is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's like the whole thing where it's like breakfast, lunch, and reinforcements. You know?
He just and you know the thing is, none of them seem cheesy. They're literally all just awesome and great.
They're really good.
Yeah.
So in the very beginning, one of my favorite ones was when the I guess it's the general, he says, "You're no hero, Boyd. I want you as far away from my outfit as possible." And he goes, "I'm sending you to California." And it's funny because that must have been like a exile. Nowadays it's like paradise, right? But back then it's an exile.
Yeah.
I'm sending you to California.
They must have been like in Texas or something.
I think they probably were.
Yeah.
And then he says, and then I love how Guy Pearce explains what happened. Just the wordage that he used and the way that they show it. And Devo mentioned it already. Like, my commanding officer's half shot off head in my face, his blood running down my throat. And the image is just brutality. It's literally as gory and bloody as you can get.
Yep.
Just war. Then
fantastic.
Exactly.
This guy.
Rest in peace, Miguel.
Rest in power.
Then there's another scene where they're sort of, I think the Colonel is telling David Arquette to go with Martha to the
store
town,
or whatever. Yeah.
And he's like, no local weed, no peyote, no women. And my first thought is, what the fuck is this man supposed to do? He can't live that way.
And then he just looks at the Colonel. He's just laughing.
Yeah.
He's all, and I think he says something to Martha like, he says, I can't have no women.
No, he starts reading his own version of the list, right? So the Colonel wants local weed, peyote, and women, and Martha's like, no women. That was like the best thing he said.
But you can get that local weed.
He said that's what.
He's not terrible. He's funny.
That's like, dude, that was like under the breath type. Like, it was the best thing he said.
And then I really like the quote where George, the native dude, says, he's like, well, that would be ridiculous. Like Beetlejuice guy says that would be ridiculous. Men don't eat each other. And that's just a legend. And then he says, white man eats the body of Jesus Christ every Sunday. I was like, damn, right there.
That was harsh.
Low blow.
I like that one.
Drop that bomb.
I had this written down, Devo. You mentioned it already, the bourbon scene. I really love how Jeremy Davies like inflects the first sentence. He basically says very politely, I would very much appreciate some of that bourbon now.
Yeah.
That's what he says, and then he yells the bourbon now. It's so
bourbon now.
And then there's a scene where the drunk guy is talking to Robert Carlyle as he's Ives, and he says, "Oh, you're making stew? Let me know if I can do anything." He's like, "Perhaps perhaps later you might contribute." I was like, "This motherfucking guy."
Yeah, that's subtle, just like.
And then and then when Carlyle's explaining to Guy Pearce the whole story, and he's like, he finally ate them, and he's like, I felt stronger, I felt healed, I didn't have tuberculosis anymore, and he goes, and virile, and I was virile. And then Guy Pearce says, did you eat her too? And he goes, well, as a matter of fact, and he starts laughing.
Yeah.
I was like, this
yeah.
So this fool raped her and then ate her. Fucking my God, man.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Well, he's a cannibal. What does he care?
Well, he didn't have to rape her. Jesus Christ, just eat her.
Well, he did.
Yeah, I know. He was virile. A certain virility. And then I love when he said, who says this? Do you guys remember who says this? He goes, Stu, a la Major Knox. I think it's Beetlejuice that says it.
It was Hart. It was
the Colonel,
Hart.
yeah.
Hart.
And then even then, and then he sits down later and he's like, isn't this civilized?
Yeah.
And then while literally Guy Pearce is spewing blood out of his mouth at the table, and they're like basically forcing him to eat, otherwise he's going to die at that very moment. And then Robert Carlyle says, Ben Franklin once said, eat to live. Don't live to eat. Don't live to eat. And he goes, it's an easy decision, Boyd. Famine or feast, live or die.
Yep.
I just love the way he says it, the way he delivers it. It's so good. And then at the very end, when he gets the trap clamped on him, he goes, that was really sneaky. And then he laughs. I just loved it. And then he goes, obviously he says, if you die first, I'm definitely going to eat you. The question is, if I die, what are you going to do? Yeah. And then right before he dies, he goes, bon appetit.
Yeah.
I mean, for Christ's sake, this guy is perfect. So let's get into. I want to ask you guys about a remake. How would you guys feel about a remake of this?
So I got some notes here, and so my personal feeling is that like there should be like an industry-wide statute of like let 20 to 30 years pass before you decide to remake a movie. And obviously we're at that time point for Ravenous, and I feel this is the kind of movie, and I have no idea what this whole 2017 Ravenous is. I don't know if it's related or what, but
not at all.
I feel Ravenous could get a solid remake, but I think I don't know if it would be something that would be done in a modern war, or maybe you want to take a different take on it, because I don't even know why I thought about this. Now that I think about it, it sounds stupid, but like if you did something of like maybe like zombies versus cannibals, I don't know if that would be a remake or just like a completely different iteration of Ravenous, but I think, like what would Ravenous be like in, I don't know, maybe like the Iraqi war or like the current Afghanistan war,
That's a great point, actually, because this is set in the backdrop of a war, so that would be interesting to transport this to another war. Because
what happens if somebody in one of these wars is just like, I can't handle anymore, and like just lays down and pretends to be dead, and then gets taken across enemy lines and is like just swallowing blood? Like, how does that pan out in this type of situation, Or what if it happens on the other side, And that's one thing that I always find kind of interesting, is that whenever we see movies like this, it's always the Americans doing something. Like, what happened if it was somebody from the other, like in the American-Mexican War, like if one of the this happened with one of the Mexicans, like they overtook one of our forts, like does that all of a sudden just change the tide? And like, does like a Wendigo powered Mexican army take over the United States? Like, what does that look like? I kind of feel like we should not be so like gung-ho to keep America strong, and like just explore, play in this area. Like, what would happen? Like,
I don't know.
I'd eat each other.
I mean, well, the whole thing about the American thing is, I think it's fine. A perfect backdrop to it, just because I live in America. I understand what you're saying, but I mean, you go to other films. I mean, their backdrop isn't America. It's wherever they're from. So if this film would have been made in Mexico, it would have probably been some Mexican guys. That's what I'm trying to do. So, I think they could remake this film. I don't think they'd be able to get such great actors for $12 million.
Oh God, no.
Yes, I mean, I think it would be done with like terrible, like C to B actors. Maybe they may get one A actor, like a aging A actor, to be Colonel Hart, possibly. So it would be a hard sell, but people are digging horror films now, and they're getting like that niche. So I think it may do good.
Yeah,
I wouldn't change it much though. I think it's a good
setting.
A good setting. And the whole myth about the Indian Wendigo bullcrap, I think it's okay.
What do you mean? It's not bullcrap. That's where it came from, dog.
Well, but the whole thing about eating someone's essence and becoming this vampiric being. I know it's a horror film, but I think I would rather just have a slasher film. But that's me.
I actually would like to see a spin-off of this. Obviously not maybe these characters, but maybe this this Wendigo idea, the way that they portrayed it in the film. I would love to see a spin-off, but I kind of maybe would like to see it be like a Netflix series or something like that, where you, and like Devo mentioned, I like your idea of having it in like a modern-ish setting, or maybe not even modern, but just a different setting, like maybe a different time period, like Mexican-American War, but maybe we do like World War II, World War One, something like that, and the Wendigo outbreak type of thing. And obviously they, like if anyone's ever seen Overlord, you sort of get this, it's not about Wendigo, but it's like a zombie-ish type thing that's in World War II, and it's a great movie. If anyone out there is looking for, they liked Ravenous and you want to see it applied to some different like era, this horror concept, I think it would be a really good movie to look at. But I would think that even this Wendigo idea, I really like it. But I do agree with Guch. There is something about the setting that makes it that much more, I don't know how to put your finger on it. There's something more perilous about it because there's no one else to help you, like there would be in like a more modern populated area. But I think that a show would be good, would be fun, especially if they were able to get Guy Pearce to come back and maybe do it. But I don't think, I mean, his character's dead, so I guess you can't do that, you know.
But maybe he can come back as maybe like the colonel role or something like that, you know.
Well, maybe they didn't show it, so maybe he did eat Carlyle, and maybe he's been alive for 50 years or something like that. You know, I think it would be maybe a little interesting little twist, you know?
Yeah.
But I just looked up like movies about cannibalism, and number one on it is Ravenous. So
it's a great movie.
It is a great movie. It's about, you know, about this darker subject with a lighter tone in some of the parts of it. Because most of the other movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I guess there's a movie called Raw. But I mean, there's movies about cannibalism out there. And the only thing I make this one special is because they kind of put, with the Wendigo myth, they kind of make it, if you become a cannibal, you kind of have these vampiric powers too. So you become super powerful. And apparently you move like a fucking vampire, because Guy Pearce was like whoosh, 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 doing this super fast, like, you know, swishing everywhere. You know, Guy Pearce couldn't catch him type thing. So
yeah, I mean, but that's the allure of it, all right? Well, they have these powers.
Yeah,
you know?
so the only way I see it doing is like, you know, it's like the myth of the, you know, Native American myth of the Wendigo is actually their vampiric myth type thing, you know, and that's how they would tie it together. And fortunately, they'd probably make it a dumbass teen fucking thing. So,
well, if it's cannibalism, it probably wouldn't be a teen thing.
Well, I mean, they would move it back to more like a vampire Wendigo thing.
They'll make it to where like you don't have to eat the people, you just have to like kiss them, and then they become like sparkly.
They sparkle
everywhere.
Yeah.
And
they sparkle and everything. Yeah. So let's top this one off, boys, with our thoughts on how worthy this film
1,000 times yes. Please watch this movie.
Oh yeah, I'd definitely say watch this film, especially if you like, you know, horror and not. I mean, it's gory. I've seen gorier stuff out there, and I'm not talking about like, you know, Hostel. That stuff is this is not like that.
This is gory within context.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest with you, like the whole gruesome part of it, I think since they really don't show like I guess they were cutting up the guy's torso, but the torso was already cut up, so they don't like actually see the guy's like head being locked off, and he's not like trying to stop him and stuff. So it's not that gory. It's just like a torso.
I don't think it's gratuitous at all.
Yeah,
it's not very gratuitous. It's just graphic.
It's okay. I think the most graphic thing is like the guy's brain like being like the blood into the guy's mouth. But I think
I mean, there's a couple scenes where people's bodies are ripped open.
But
like, Toffler's body.
But they had already shown. They already shown it. Was like they didn't show him ripping it open.
No.
It was.
So that's what I'm saying. It's graphic.
It was already done.
But it's not.
I think the fight scene in Fight Club is more graphic than this one. The one where like he's like getting beat up and they spit his blood into the guy's mouth.
You don't know where I've been.
Exactly. I think that's way more gratuitous than any of this. But it's
give me your word.
I would definitely watch this. It's on this number one list for cannibal movies, and it's a strong 7 overall. Horror
7,
yeah. Horror, right. I give it maybe an 8, but I'm
gonna give you a 7.
It's 7. That's a good movie. That's a good. It wasn't that
Devo,
great.
You're a 7 as well.
I already said 1,000 times yes. Like I give this movie an 8 because I mean, great soundtrack, great acting. It's a great story. It's just from start to finish, it's to me, it's engaging. It's different. That's the thing about it, is it's different. It's scary, but it's not like I'm a zombie scary. It's not like, I'm a ghost or an alien werewolf scary. It's a different type of scary. It's something that like feels like it could be real, and so I just love this. And every time I watch it or every time I see scenes from it, I can repeat lines from this movie, and I haven't seen it in 10 years. It's just a great film from start to finish.
For me, I give the film a 9. It's probably one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. The only reason why I don't give it a 10 is because I don't think so the story isn't as quite as dynamic as some of my other favorite movies, and the some of the execution isn't quite as up to par, but like some of the scenes and so forth. But because I think that there could have been maybe a little bit more that you could pull out of it. But the way that what I do like about this movie is the way it's all put together. Like when you combine all the elements of the cool story, the cool setting, like Devo mentioned, the music that I absolutely love, the acting, the lines, the dialogue, the charisma of some of the characters, and the way it's all put together, there's just something about it that's so irresistible to me, and I just loved it just as much this time as I ever did the first time I watched it. And the comedy, that's in there and everything. I love the movie. I know that. I'm the type of person, if I recommend a movie to someone because I like it, they might not like it. If I recommend a movie to something because I think that they will like it, then they probably will. But I don't know that there's that many people other than you two guys that I would recommend this movie to that I know that you guys are going to like this movie. Right. So I think that's kind of the downfall of this one. We're saying it's awesome, you should watch it. But I think there's quite a few people out there that are going to be quite turned off by the movie. Yeah. But I just loved it, and it's one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have. So that is Ravenous.
Ravenous.
And we will be back next week. Until then, the Social Deviants are signing off. From the Clintoris to
the Guch,
the sick man outside.
Later, y'all.
Gracias.